Nocturne. I'm Vanessa Lowe.
Insects, especially like moths, which are nocturnal, they occupy so little of our consciousness, or we don't even think about them. They seem so insignificant and useless. And that is the reason why we wanted to make a film about them, because we don't even think about many things in the world which actually are holding our ecosystems together and who play a very, very important role, who've been around in the world for a lot longer than human beings. But in our arrogance, we think that they don't matter and we don't need to think about them. My name is Anupama. I'm a filmmaker and I recently co-directed a film with Anirban called Nocturnes.
Hi, I'm Anirban. I directed Nocturnes with Anu, and both of us live in the city of Delhi in India.
Nocturnes is an exquisite documentary film about the moths who inhabit the dense forests of the eastern Himalayas and the scientists who study them to learn the secrets of their existence. The film was a New York Times Critics' Pick in 2024, which is of course gratifying to the filmmakers. But before we talk about the film, Anirban wants to make something very clear.
We want to acknowledge the indigenous Bukun and the Shedupen community on whose land we shot the film, and it is because of them, the forest that they have protected, the forest where they have given kilometers of their own land to create a buffer zone, that this forest exists. Without that, there is no science, there is no film. And just for people to know that this forest is a bird watcher's paradise, and the plethora of insects, birds, mammals. This forest has got some of the rarest species of mammals like leopard cat, clouded leopard, marble cat. Now these are really, really rare species. Along with that, the red panda, the flying squirrels. Many of this, as human beings, we couldn't see because the animals camouflage themselves. But if you are aware, you can feel them. And here, the indigenous community with whom we took their guidance, we met them, we went to the elders telling them that we are going in, and we were always there with the people from the community.
So we spent a lot of time just building relationships with people there, even though the film directly is not about the community.
The film Nocturnes is not about the human community living in the Himalayan forest between India and Bhutan. But you might say that the film tells the story of the larger community of the natural world. Through focusing on these beautiful and mysterious moths, mostly in the dark and illuminated by a narrow halo of light, Anupama and Anirban create a magnetic invitation to become quiet and still, and to enter into an awareness of the larger mystery of which we are all a part. Our entry point is two humans, a scientist named Mansi and her research partner, Biki, as they seek to understand the connection between the moth's existence and the changing nature of climate.
So Mansi was partnering with Biki, the person from the indigenous community, and at various elevations, they had to take photographs, 400 photographs, of this particular kind of moths called the hawk moth. And what they were studying was how their body size and the size of their wings are impacted by the change in temperature. Now you would say, why does the body size and wing size matter? But the thing is that they are cold-blooded. So they flutter their wings to keep their body muscles warm. So their survival is directly linked to how much they can flutter, how much heat they can generate, and how far they can fly. And some of the hawk moth, the small hawk moths, are much more fragile because they are very sensitive to temperature, very sensitive to moisture and very sensitive to the particular climatic condition at a certain elevation. So the study is an invitation for them to understand what will happen to this little or big hawk moths when there is a shift in temperature.
Nocturnes invites us deep into the lush remote forest, where we watch as the researchers set up a large white screen in the darkness, light it up, and painstakingly examine the nocturnal creatures who arrive. There are long close-ups of the human faces, but even more time spent simply observing the wondrous chaos of insect creatures drawn to light. The humans are not the central characters, but they do embody the role of the entranced observer, almost modeling the patience, stillness, and awe that the filmmakers hope will be experienced by viewers. The humans on screen personify respectful, even loving curiosity, which the filmmakers mirror and amplify. When Anirban and Anupama first met Mansi, while they were all working on a commission project about snow leopards, they were moth newbies.
And we just ran into each other at a small eating joint where we both complained to each other, just randomly saying that this thing is not going well and I don't know what these people are doing. And so she was like, I'm doing this just to earn some money, but my real passion is moths. And I work in this gorgeous forest in the eastern Himalayas. And then she described what she does, and that she puts up this white screen and blue lights, and hordes of beautiful moths come and plant themselves and make these patterns, and they are of different sizes and different colors, and they have these amazing designs. And we were very intrigued by her passion and the way she described that image, which seemed so cinematic to us. And we said, okay, we'll come and see what you do. Because as filmmakers, we felt that maybe this is what we can explore, as we were already trying to look for something through our medium, we could connect back to nature. And then we followed her there, and what we witnessed there was even better than what she had told us. So we didn't know anything about moths, just like many other people. So in a way, this was an educational process for us that opened out every night. When we saw them, we got to admire them, we got to film them, and then we felt closer and closer as we were filming them. And then we would just spend hours just looking at each moth and take long takes of each part of the screen and looking at all the amazing life that was unfolding before us. Just a flutter somewhere, the light falling on the wing, every small texture, and the interactions between the moths and the other insects that also landed on the screen. And moths actually are very diverse. They have many, many different species, most of which, even in that particular forest where we filmed, have not even been named or been discovered by humans yet. So it just makes you feel very humble that as human beings, we can't control whether they come to the screen or not, and we also don't know much about them at all. And even today, scientists are studying even very basic things like why do they get attracted to light. There are many theories about it, but actually, believe it or not, there is no consensus about even that. So it just makes you feel like there's so many mysteries in the natural world that we haven't even begun to start understanding. And we were so fascinated by the moth screen and the moths and the whole sense of waiting for this natural spectacle to unfold every night. And sometimes it would be very sparse, and we would be disappointed along with the scientists saying, oh, there's nothing. And then there was this up and down of our emotional state depending on whether the moths showed up or not and what film was going to play on that screen every night. And the moths were sort of totally in control of that film.
This experience of waiting for wild creatures in the darkness and the emotional roller coaster of whether or not a hawk moth would show up provides an element of filmic tension to Nocturnes. But this tension only hints at a more ominous force beneath the surface, a larger context that is distinctly human.
So Anu and I live in this extremely polluted city of Delhi where we are mostly stuck at home, and I have two kids, and I saw them as the pollution level went up. My kids could not go out and play in the parks anymore. And it was deeply disturbing because the joy that I had growing up in looking at nature, looking at small birds, or even a butterfly or a grasshopper, all of that my kids never had. And we both were feeling this disconnection, and we wanted to do something from a deep need inside and wanted to calm our anxiety, our fear, the dystopia that we were seeing all around.
I don't want to bury the lead here. It probably won't surprise you to learn that the hawk moths in the Himalayas are in peril due to climate disruption. But the filmmakers made a striking decision to tell a climate change story without really talking about climate change.
Of course, we knew that Mansi was doing the study, and she was doing an elevational study of moths, in which elevation was a surrogate for temperature. So there might be something related to climate that might emerge. But we didn't start this film as a climate film.
And even though Nocturnes did become about climate, it does so from a place of gratitude.
What it does is it shows that there is immense beauty, immense possibility, immense hope. And it's not important for humans to only look at the disaster and not look at hope. That nature, the mountains, those forests who have been there for thousands of years, everything seemed so much larger in terms of the geological time than in human existence, that it felt that one could just suspend and surrender to nature and let us be a part of it, instead trying to control too many things.
Our interest was just that simple in terms of connecting to nature. Our whole approach was not to see whether Mansi achieves her goal or not. Our aim was to trust the process, to enjoy the journey, regardless of what the result is. So our impetus was always to see the beauty and the joy of observation, and at the same time not make a superficial feel-good film, because we are living in difficult times. So how do we invite the audience into this beauty, into this calmness, at the same time have these opportunities to think more deeply about the lives we are leading, about our own connection with nature?
What they landed on is an unusual film in which there are long, wondrous takes of the singular setting.
So this is a place called Arunachal Pradesh. This is close to China and to Bhutan. And there is a national sanctuary called Eagle Nest Sanctuary. And the elevation in the sanctuary changes very fast. So there is one single mud road which connects the whole sanctuary. And within every 500 meter to 1000 meter, you can feel the change in temperature, feel the change in humidity, and feel the change in the texture of the forest. What it does is, because the elevation is changing, it also creates a certain change in the life form, in the sense that the chirping of the birds at a lower elevation is very different from the chirping of the birds at the higher elevation, or no chirping almost at the top. Similarly, the gush of the wind sounds very different. The movement of the fog at various points are very different. Sometimes the fog almost plays hide and seek with you. It travels and it hides behind a mountain, and sometimes, as if to see you, it travels from behind the mountain over the top of the canopy of the tree, and then there's a sparkle of sunlight on it, when you get this immense joy of seeing sun after many, many days. And it pours so heavily that you can wear as many raincoats as you might, but still the water finds a way to seep in, and it's very cold, and you feel every droplet of water on your skin.
And on a lucky day when it opens up, we can actually see the Himalayan ranges very clearly. And it's absolutely stunning when it opens, because in a way, many times when we are there, because of the cloudy and foggy weather, the visibility is very poor, so we can see only a little bit close to us. But when it opens up, suddenly we feel that we are in this huge natural landscape with the snow-clad Himalayas, and then ranges and ranges of forests all around, and very few human beings. And that's very energizing, and it just makes you feel like there are so many mysteries in the world.
It always feels a little odd to present an audio story about something whose impact is largely experienced visually. And I want to tell you here and now that I've never seen anything like the images that Ani and Anu captured in Nocturnes. There are long, patient, lingering shots of the light screen, covered with unbelievably jewel-colored, fluttering moths of various shapes and sizes. And what makes the whole tableau almost shocking in its dizzying beauty is that it is surrounded by complete darkness.
We have an interesting relationship with filming at night, because our previous film together was Flickering Lights, in which we actually filmed a lot at night and in a village that does not have electricity. So we really enjoyed actually what it does to the visuals. And there was a way to focus attention because of the lack of light, actually. Because wherever there were pools of light, your eye goes there. And it also intensifies the emotional experience of just viewing and making images. And in Nocturnes, because all the activity or the primary activity was happening at night, again we interacted with darkness. And it was absolutely amazing to see like this small pool of light which the scientists made with their artificial lights and the screen, and then all around it was just black darkness. And that became a very important visual motif to which we kept coming back, is the night and then this ritual or this activity happening at night, and how to, create that magical space through our image making at night.
Well, not entirely magical.
I have had a very interesting relationship with night. It comes from my deep sense of anxiety. So I have a problem of anxiety in any case. I get very anxious, I get nervous, and that's been a recurring problem for me for many years. And I have taken mental health support, I have taken therapeutic support, and many a times when I went through intense anxious moments or attacks of anxiety, I could not sleep in darkness. I had to keep a light on to feel comfortable, to be aware of my surroundings. And I also have insomnia problems, so I have a struggle with darkness and at night. But also at the same time, I'm attracted as an artist to darkness, and I like to work with darkness, as Anu said, where there is an interplay of what you can see and what you can't see. And when you can't see certain things, then the audio or the sound makes you hear, and through that hearing process you start seeing. So sometimes the darkness opens up another faculty in your head, in your senses, makes it more aware.
The filmmakers faced other challenges during the 5-year process of making Nocturnes, including interruptions due to the COVID pandemic.
But also the seasonality of the work dictated when we could film. So it pours like crazy during monsoons there. You can't even enter the forest. The scientists cannot work. Along with that, during winter, the moths don't come out. So we have to leave the monsoons and the winter out. And the rest of the time is the time for filming and the work of the scientists. And within that, their cycle of working there in the forest is dictated by the cycle of the moon. It's only 6 days before the new moon and 3 days after, so it's 10 days is basically their main working time. And the rest of the time they are analyzing data, they are preparing to do the next cycle's work.
So I think we had 4 long schedules of filming. and 2 or 3 shorter ones in the forest. And we also had another camera person who was dedicatedly doing the wildlife part of it. And every time we went into the forest, we would film for 10 or 12 days when we camped out in the forest. But before that, we spent about a week, 10 days doing the prep, because a lot of times we had to do all the logistical arrangements for the crew to arrive. So Anirban, me, and the production person used to go with the support of the people from there. We would set up the tents, arrange a cook for the crew, and put rain covers on all the tents because it used to pour all the time there. And so we had to do all the preparation. And we also always went and met people from the community first and the forest department, told them what we were doing, why we had come, how things are, understand how things have been while we were away in terms of what's happening in the forest, what's happening in their lives with the weather. So we always followed that procedure. So Anirban and I would be there for 3 weeks, but the shoot would only be for 10 or 12 days when the rest of the crew would come.
The challenge was of incessant rain, humidity like you have never seen before, and insects. And we would be bitten all over by various kinds of insects. And I have a particular affinity of attracting leeches and insect bites. And like many of our crew members, I would have swollen feet, swollen hands by the end of the thing, and then it was like going back and seeing a dermatologist who would give me medicine.
It was really tough for me because I'm not a camping kind of person, so it was a big struggle. I was always cold, even in what was supposed to be summer. But once you go deep in the forest and then when it's raining and at night, it was always terribly cold. And I was really miserable all the time. It's only when we were filming with the moths, that part, and then I would forget all my petty worries, and just the beauty of the moths would calm me and would make me forget all the physical problems, and just, then I would sort of get into the zone, and we could be just filming all night, watching each moth, filming each moth, and that joy never went away. Like through the 3.5 years of filming, every time when the moths came to the moth screen and we filmed them, it was such a joy to experience that, and a privilege to film that I would forget all these miseries, and then they would come back the next morning again.
And what we saw, and just the pleasure, like we are both now dying to go back there again. It just, that sound, that forest, those clouds, that walking on the edge of the mountain, it's just such a joy and such a privilege to be able to go there. The rest of the logistics is only a small part of it.
Ani and Anu discovered as they filmed that just as the moths were elusive and mysterious, the environment of the forest was often fleeting and ephemeral, like the bands of time that emerged as day gave way to night. In those moments, they found themselves shifting the focus away from what could be seen and leaning into the ever-present change.
Yeah, so the soundscape of the place also changes very, very rapidly. And so many times when we used to hear a sound and try to set up a shot, by the time we set up the shot, it would go away because they have very particular timing of the natural events. So there are these really tiny birds that feed at around 11 a.m. in just that small area of the forest where we were filming. And so they would all be squeaking their heads off and running here and there because that's their feeding time. And then after they finished, just within like 15-20 minutes, it would be totally quiet as far as the birds went. But then the insects would take over. And then one particular kind of insect would take over. And then the crickets. And as the night came in, again the bird sounds would increase, the cricket sounds would increase. And so there was this sort of ebb and flow of sounds, which totally transformed our experience of being in the forest through the day and night. And the night sometimes was so quiet. And we were like, what happened? Where are all the insects? And then there would be just this one single bird making a sound, and which made it eerie, and but which also brought again that sense of attention that comes only in darkness, actually, at least for me. That very particular attention to one particular sound or one particular pool of light. And that intensifies your experience of being in that space.
In this letting go to the shifting nature of the forest, the filmmakers are doing something subtle, but also quite bold.
Because our medium is cinema, we wanted to create a world within our film in which there's more parity. We were very disturbed by human beings always pushing themselves to the highest level, to the center of everything. And as filmmakers, we thought, how are we going to challenge that? How are we going to make images in which human beings are a part of the image, but not extract them from their surroundings and film only what's happening to them, and everything else is not important? So that's why we imagine that this is a very political film, because it is challenging the power structure that we take for granted. We think we are important, our stories are important, our issues are important. And I think the need of our times, if I can say that, is that we really need to rethink that. We really need to rethink our position in this world and on this planet. And for us, through our cinematic tools, we were like, okay, how do we actually do that? And so we have image, sound, and time. And how do we play with those tools to slowly transfer that philosophy or our understanding of the world and create this alternate world in which human beings are there, they are important, but there is also a lot else going on.
So here we wanted to place human beings as a part of the natural world, not outside of the natural world. When we start seeing humans as a part of the natural world, we actually saw that the natural drama, what was happening around the work of Mansi and Biki, was the real drama that was dictating the work of human protagonists. And then we understood, actually, the moth protagonists are our real protagonists, and humans are just our guide in this journey. And the drama is the drama of the natural world.
So can we take many seconds of our precious time and just watch a tree, watch fog flowing in and out of the forest? Can we watch the fluttering of moths for 1.5 minutes? And, so in a way, through the duration of the shots and then in the edit, we were like, let's forget about the humans for a bit and let's get engrossed in something else. Let's find the beauty in that. And I think for us, that's where the hope lies, is that there is this beauty that's still there in the world. If only we were to take that time and attention to look more deeply and listen with more intent. And finally, we said that is what film is. The film is an invitation to the audience to listen and look with more love and attention.
While decentering humans is a part of the boldness of Nocturnes, the filmmakers employed an even bolder filmmaking move. You might call it radical slowness.
Again, Nocturnes is a very political film, because in a world where speed is everything, where we want to reach a place faster, when we want the internet to be faster, we want everything to come quickly to us, we don't want to wait. So Nocturnes makes you wait and tells you maybe that there is joy even in waiting and in patience. And so the pacing of the film was very, very deliberate. Instinctively, we felt that the shots should be of longer duration, that we have to wait for things to unfold. It was this thing of letting time flow, because I think time is at the heart of filmmaking, and it is through that we communicate everything. It is through that we draw in an audience, that we allow people to see what they want to see in the image, rather than cutting and chopping too much and drawing the attention in very deliberate ways and in very reductive ways, I would say. So it's an invitation to enter this world and to make your own journey through it.
There was initial concern among some involved in the making of Nocturnes that audiences wouldn't have the patience to watch how this story unfolds. Some were convinced that kids, trained early on in fast movement and quick cuts, would be bored. That was not the case.
Because when the film is not about information, but when it's about feeling, when it's about experience, then I think it is like music. So you can listen to the same music that you love 1,000 times and it doesn't bore you. And that was our aspiration, is that can we create a film that has an impact like music, where it's not about telling a story or giving information, but about an experience that you can return to.
This musicality is where the title Nocturnes came from.
Our impulse was poetic. Our creative ambition in the film of aspiring to something like music. The images were inspiring us, the sounds were inspiring us to challenge ourselves, to not be stuck in conventional ideas of what a documentary should be or what a film should be and what the structure of the film should be. So in all those aspects, we pushed beyond the limits that were generally given to us as filmmakers. And so that's where the larger sort of musicality of it came.
I want to also add that both Anu and I are deeply interested in music. And if you ask both of us what is our first love, we will always say music. And in music, there is a particular kind of Indian classical music which is called Hindustani classical music, which are the ragas that you hear. Now, if you listen to a raga is a structure of a few notes which can be written down in 2 lines. But a good musician plays that for 2 hours. What they do is they show you various variations, colors, texture, expansion, contraction, and also take you through a journey. But after that journey, they always come back to the base note of the rag. So Nocturnes is very much influenced by that structure, where you come back to the screen, but you do an exploration and then you come back. And at the end, you still come back, but you find something else. So it's the deep musicality of the milieu, of the environment that we were in, where the music was that of a nature, where the crickets, the bird sound, the night owl, the raindrops, the wind, all of that created a certain symphony. And we interpreted that through the structure of Indian classical music to create the form of Nocturnes.
I had the pleasure of seeing Nocturnes twice in actual movie theaters, which I highly recommend if you ever have the chance. For me, the experience engendered a real mixture of wonder, sadness, and hope, which is what the best stories about climate change do, in my opinion.
I think one of the things that we have done in our journalism, in our films, is there is too much attraction to violence, to death. It's only when there are so many numbers of death that it makes an headline. So it's almost like we have become disaster junkies. But our hope is that children from all over the world will go to see this film. We would love to show the film in India to children who go to public schools, to children here in the United States, children in Africa, to tell them that there is still hope, that there is still this immense beauty in nature, and it's for us to preserve it. And we have to resist people who want to walk out of climate accords. We have to resist people who just want to burn our forests and give away our land and our mountain for extracting minerals. I think it's important that as human beings, we look deeply into what we are doing. And here, the hope that we find is from nature.
You've been listening to Nocturne. I'm Vanessa Lowe. Nocturne is produced by me and was created by myself and Kent Sparling, who also created the theme music. Anupama and Anirban continue to harness the story of the Himalayan hawk moths in their mission of helping others connect to and care about this precious world, with the hopes of protecting it. They've started an initiative called Nocturnes Traveling Cinema, in which they're showing the film to children across India and conducting workshops around looking and listening to their environment and building understanding of ecology and climate issues. So far, they've done a series of 15 workshops near the forest where they filmed Nocturnes, reaching close to 600 children from various villages and towns. Their goal is to take the initiative to 100,000 children in India, both in other Himalayan regions as well as urban areas. The film Nocturnes can be seen on multiple streaming services. I'll post a link for Nocturnes on our website in the show notes for this episode. That's at nocturnepodcast.org. Thank you to everyone who supports Nocturne on Patreon and PayPal. Extra special thanks to Hunter Longshore, who supports Nocturne on Patreon at the Happy Possum level, which is our highest level of support. Find out how you can help at nocturnepodcast.org/support. Till next time, thanks for listening, and be well.